Let's break it down. Today we need to talk about Trump's Venezuela problem and a small boat in the Caribbean that has turned into a very big scandal. Back in September, the US military targeted what they said was a drug smuggling boat in the Caribbean Sea. First there was a strike, the boat was hit and people ended up in the water. Then, according to reports, there was a second action that led to the deaths of the remaining people. The White House says a Navy admiral ordered that follow-up step and that it was within the law, while people in Congress are asking if this might actually have broken international rules. So, what does this have to do with Venezuela and Trump's dilemma? Let's walk through it. First, what actually happened with this boat? The basic story is this. US forces were going after boats they say were moving illegal drugs. One of those boats was struck by a missile. Some people survived the first hit. Then a second strike was ordered and those survivors did not make it. A major US newspaper reported that Trump's defense secretary, Pete Hegseth, gave an order to deal with everyone on board. He says that report is false and denies giving that instruction. The White House is now saying the admiral made that call and everything followed the rules. Meanwhile, people in Congress from both parties are basically saying if you target people who are already out of the fight, it starts to look less like self-defense and more like something that crosses a line. So, Trump is trying to do two things at once: look tough on drugs and crime and at the same time distance himself from the most controversial part of this operation. Second, why is Venezuela in the middle of this? This boat incident is not just some random event on the sea. It's part of a bigger Trump strategy against Venezuela's president, Nicolas Maduro. Trump has treated Venezuelan airspace as almost completely restricted. He has sent a big US carrier group and warships to the Caribbean. He has labeled a network linked to Venezuelan officers as a dangerous organization, and he has hinted that actions on land inside Venezuela could come very soon. On paper, all of this is presented as a campaign against drugs. In reality, many analysts say it's about oil, influence in Latin America, and pressure on Maduro's government. So, when a small boat is struck and no one is left alive after a second strike, it's not just about that one boat. It's a message. We can reach into this region whenever we want, and we'll call it law enforcement. That's where the Venezuela dilemma comes in. Trump wants to look strong enough to put pressure on Maduro, but not so extreme that the world openly accuses him of serious violations. Third, how this looks from the Middle East, from an outsider's view. Now, let me be honest, as someone watching this from outside the US, from the Middle East, from a region that has lived through many wars on something. We've seen this pattern before. War on terror, war on drugs, protecting democracy. Very beautiful English words. But on the ground, it often means airstrikes and operations where ordinary people in poor areas lose their lives. Legal experts in the US are already saying this boat case looks like it may involve unlawful use of force. They argue Trump is stretching the law, using labels like terror and cartel, to bypass Congress and normal rules about conflict. From our side of the world, it feels very familiar. If you call someone a threat with the right label, suddenly almost any action becomes necessary force. But ask yourself this: if those people on that boat were poor fishermen or low-level smugglers just trying to feed their families, does finishing the job in the water really make America safer? Or does it just send a message that great powers can do whatever they want as long as they choose the right words? Fourth, what this means going forward. For Venezuelans, this is frightening. They are already living with economic collapse, sanctions, and millions of people leaving the country. Now they are watching US warships and missiles in their backyard and hearing talk of action on their soil. For the rest of us, it raises a bigger question. If the US can close another country's airspace, strike boats, leave no survivors, and then say, this is not war, it's just law enforcement, what stops any powerful country from doing the same thing tomorrow? And for Trump, personally, this is the dilemma. If he backs off, he looks weak in front of his tough-on-crime supporters. If he keeps going, he risks being remembered as the leader who normalized these kinds of operations and called them a drug raid. So let's break it down one last time. An operation in the Caribbean, carried out in the name of fighting drugs, has turned into a scandal over a second strike on a small boat. That scandal is tied directly to Trump's bigger showdown with Maduro and Venezuela. And from outside the US, it looks less like fighting crime and more like testing how far a superpower can go without calling it a war. If your family was on that boat, would national security sound like a good explanation? Tell me in the comments what you think. Is this real security or just political theater with real consequences? This is Imran Breaks It Down, and we'll keep breaking it down together.